Hello, everyone, and welcome to Masters of Digital Transformation, a podcast from AIM10X dedicated to uncovering the stories behind the world's leading change agents and the best practices and most valuable learnings from our community of global innovators. I'm your host, Caleb Masters, and as always, we're here to provide you with actionable insights from today's greatest thought leaders to guide and accelerate your journeys. Welcome to the beginning of our fourth season. In today's episode, we're going to be joined by the former CIO of Walgreens Boots Alliance, Francesco Tinto, to discuss his incredible journey as a digital transformation leader before hearing about how he approached assessing the right technology to grow his organizations. We're going to start by talking about Francesco's exceptional career before learning about how he approached sizing up the technology and solutions that was implemented within his companies. We'll also cover the important role that flexible and extensible technology played in his overall transformation success. And then we'll close out the conversation by taking a look at how the technology experiences that he built within his companies impacted and influenced the adoption and employee rates. But enough with that tease. Let's meet our first guest of the season, Francesco Tinto. Over his 30-year career in IT, Francesco has been an integral in building and enhancing some of the world's best brands at Walgreens Boots Alliance, Kraft Heinz Company, Kraft Foods, and Procter & Gamble through improving business processes, optimizing the IT landscape, and enabling digital transformations. Francesco, welcome to Masters of Digital Transformation.
Thanks a lot for having me today, and very excited and looking forward to this conversation.
Likewise. Well, you have just such an incredible career. Let's go all the way back here. You've worked with brands like worked as an IT manager at Procter & Gamble. You've also moved all the way up from that IT manager role up to global CIO of the Kraft Heinz Company, and then eventually Walgreens Boots Alliance before moving out of that role. Could you tell us a little bit more about what attracted you to the world of IT?
First of all, as you said, I always started in IT, and I was first in CPG, then in pharmacy retail, and now I started a new chapter. So I've been always fascinated by the possibility of apply IT to the business. So not technology for the sake of technology, but technology as a possibility to make a change in the business. And the great thing about IT, the one that really inspired me, are two major aspects. The first one is working in IT allows you really to look at the enterprise across all the areas. So to have an impact in all dimensions of the business. And the second one is that the job constantly change, technology change, and you have to change. You have always to learn new things. You have new challenges in front of you, and that is actually extremely stimulating for me.
I can imagine over more than 30 years, the technology has evolved pretty considerably. You were probably working a lot in hardware way back in the day, but now we're really thinking more about cloud technology, AI, all sorts of new emerging tech. Maybe you could elaborate, how have the challenges related to embracing these new technologies or even assessing new tech evolved over these decades?
You are really showing my age and my 30 years in in IT. So definitely technology have changed. We were working with house-grown application, and then were replaced by monolithic ERP system, monolithic platform. And then we start discussing about system of record, system of engagement, and big focus on the big data. And so I've seen a lot of major tech platform and tech changes related to this technology. Clearly, there has been a lot of changes as well in the challenges. And now more and more, I would say the current challenge is really about the user experience. There is so much discussion about user experience, about how to make sure that you create something which is as the right experience for the user, the right experience for the customer, for the suppliers, and a big sense of speed and agility. So the timing and the speed today on the market, the speed on which you expect to bring new capabilities, definitely day and age where we were several years ago. And last but not least, incredible emphasis on data and on analytics. So for me, these are the three things: user experience, speed and agility, and the importance overall of the data and insights.
At this point, we have more data available to us than ever before. I mean, it seems like everything's a data point. I mean, I'm especially thinking about things like the Chat GPT and how it's utilizing basically any of the data that can find on the internet to generate these answers. But before we look forward, I mean, what would you say is one of your proudest achievements in your tenured career?
As you can imagine, in my 30 years, I've had a lot of success and to be honest, also some failures, which is good, is part of the learnings. I've been lucky to be part of several transformation. Very proud when we were bringing Kraft and Heinz together. In terms of how we were creating one single company, taking two major entities in a record time, we create one company able to operate in a very consistent way. And then recently, in my experience in Walgreens Boots Alliance, I would say that the program of mass personalization that we launched for the customer, where we really create a new loyalty program for Walgreens and Boots, and the possibility really to create a personalized offer. And the last but not least, which I think has been a very incredible experience, has been the effort that we have done as part of Walgreens and Boots of contributing to the COVID vaccine and COVID testing capabilities, building the online capability for the people to register to schedule their vaccine. And there's been an incredible effort as part of both national program in US and UK. So that's been part of that kind of crisis, and how we could solve it. I think for the population has been a fulfilling experience.
For something as worldwide and impactful as COVID-19, and being able to build a platform and make it easier for your customers to get access to the vaccine. I mean, is that like a fulfilling project to take on, knowing that, you're saving lives at the end of the day by making it easy and finding ways for people to get a hold of something as important as the COVID-19 vaccines?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, has been an experience, because at the end of the day, what you can imagine is that first of all, it was not just an IT project, but it was a total enterprise project. Being part of a team where you had pharmacists in the front line, really to be in the store every day, um, making shot, has been fulfilling. Getting the feedback when the patient were receiving the first shot, and you have people that were crying, people that were happy, almost signing the end of an incredible suffering period that we went through it. And with all the challenges as well on the technical side, because we had a lot of regulation that we had to stick to coming from the government, a lot of challenges in trying to provide the best experience for the population, but also in a moment that, especially at the beginning, there was a shortage of vaccine, unfortunately, that we could not satisfy the entire demand. So I think it was an incredible experience that was really testing the resilience of the entire company, but also the IT organization.
You mentioned resilience here, and I want to take it back to some of the tech challenges that we noted a moment ago. Technology is evolving, and your role leading technology, selecting the tech that is being implemented in your organization, is going to be really essential to fostering that resilience in many cases. So when you think about the role technology has played in the businesses you've worked in, and you just mentioned a few examples, how have those technology stacks evolved and served as maybe the brain of an organization's digital transformation?
The incredible aspect is that we always had, I've been part of company that went through different transformation, and technology has been always integral in enabling massive operating model changes, transformation. So, for example, going through acquisition, divestiture, or creating a central shared service capability, for example, or how you want to make sure that you have technology at global level that allow to harmonize all the procurement aspect, or as we said before, the mass personalization effort for the customer, and so on. The selection of the technology, in my opinion, always starting from having a clarity of what is the business imperative, but not really the short-term goals, but try to have an understanding of the vision and the mission of the company, and to create those kind of capability that are going to help and have the flexibility and the agility for to be adapted to wherever the company is going to go. So in the example of COVID, one of the benefits that we had is that we already took a challenge in Walgreens Boots Alliance, the decision to go to cloud. So having a tech stack on cloud that allow us to develop it with speed, agility, the possibility to cope with a different level of demand every day, I think was essential then to build those kind of capability. So that's where the technology and those kind of decisions that you take are going to be with you during part of these transformations.
Common challenge that many leaders that I've encountered in technology struggle with is figuring out how exactly to understand what's possible with the tools they've just purchased. What is the art of the possible? Is there more they could be doing? So, keeping that in mind, I want to shift gears here to learn a little bit more about how you went about evaluating the value of new tech stacks that you added to your organization throughout your career. And you've defined the business imperative, and then you're looking for solutions that can help you solve for that. How have you approached sizing up or understanding those use cases for technology?
There are different criteria that we always need to consider. I like, first of all, as you said, that we start with the business imperative, because technology just for the sake of technology is useless. I always see as technology combined to a business objective, creating a business capability. In terms of selecting, there is not a magic bullet, but there are several criteria. And I probably are more general principle before going into the use case itself. Because you have, first of all, to start defining is, are you looking at differentiating capability, not differentiating capability? Are you talking about a tech stack that has the right agility and flexibility to evolve together with your business? Because the business is never static. The business is changing, and you want to make sure that you can have a tech stack that is growing with you. And last but not least, I believe it's very important that you don't think just about the tech stack, but also the company and that is developing, that is maintaining, that is with the tech stack. You have the right partner with you. You have a partner that is evolving, is the tech stack, that is able to work with you sometimes on defining new avenue, new direction for the product. And that is extremely important because as you said, in my 30 years, I've never seen a business that and the business model that was static and was the same, has always been changed. And many times you want to stretch it, and the technology has to help you to push the business in different direction, has to enable you the business to go in this direction. And many times you need to have also thought leaders that help you from a technology point of view to go in that direction.
Having that tech stack that's able to grow with you again, because technology, as you say, is not really a one and done. Shouldn't you be thinking about not only what sort of technology or solution do you need today, but what are you going to need in 1 year, 3 year, 5 years? Why is it important to fully evaluate both the value that's being added on day one, but also the opportunity for improved efficiencies in the future?
We are never seen in IT, unfortunately, and this is always a little bit the what we have been told by our business partner is that IT projects are always expensive. The investment that we do in a technology stack is not an investment that you will be able to really pay off in 1 year. Many times these are investments that are stick there for several years. So you might want it to make sure that whatever you are building in terms of capability that you can fully adopt, fully exploit, is going to be there for a reasonable amount of time. And therefore, that is the most difficult thing. You need to start envisioning where the business is going to go, not in 12 months, but in an horizon of 3 to 5 years.
It's really a process, the implementation, and a big part of implementation, of course, is the adoption, making sure that the tech that you have is user friendly. Of course, there's got to be a way to measure this, right? So, why do you think it's so important for business leaders to measure the adoption and tech usage rates of the solutions they've implemented?
This is a topic that is very close to me. I always keep talking within my IT organization, within also with the business partner, within the company, to say the importance that a tech capability should not just be measured with the implementation. Because many times you say the IT guys from a traditional point of view says, I implement this system, done. No, you have to implement the system. We need to make sure that the system is used, and more important, you need to make sure that the system has triggered a change. Because whenever you have make this investment, you want to make sure that at the end of the day, the company is better. And to do that, the adoption, the change management is crucial. And I think many times, unfortunately, is under evaluated. And building the discipline of measuring success, not just we deliver the project on the 1st of January, spending that amount of money, but really in terms of we have changed the process, we have made a difference in the way people are working, we are making a difference in the way the consumer is interacting, and how creating the right KPI to measure it is crucial and has to be done from the right beginning to have this metric system in place.
I'm glad you brought up the change management piece because at the end of the day, the technology, the solution, it's only a part of the equation. You really need to have buy-in from the people who are using the technology to ensure you're getting the most out of it and it's being done effectively. Humans are oftentimes a little resistant to change. How have you appealed to users or your teams when trying to drive new technology using powerful change management tactics?
It's a very important balance to find because I believe that IT many times sometimes is anticipating the change. Technology has this role to be disruptive, but on the other hand, you need to make sure that you are not too disconnected where the reality of the people are. Otherwise, you are just in the famous tower there and you develop something that nobody's never going to use. So, how do you always some step ahead, but you consistently look behind and work with your user base to bring them along? So involving them from the right beginning, and more importantly, is listening, listening, listening. And that is where you talk about your user, you talk about the consumer, and your vendor, and so on. So one of the discipline, for example, in building recently in Walgreens and in Boots customer digital solution was the role of the consumer insight to be really embedded in the development. So how you really understand what are the customer needs, how you build your feature to address those needs, and you adjust, you keep adjusting. Have as well also the capability to say, I understand this is not exactly what they want. The feedback is slightly different, adjusting, and not to keep always marching on the initial direction, but be flexible as well to adjust the course based on the feedback you are getting along the way.
Thanks for bringing that example from Walgreens Boots Alliance. How have you approached getting that feedback? I would say both from employees and from consumers.
Capability in terms of, as I was say, tagging. There are technical capability in terms of how you are able to look at the behavior within every pages of the application, every click, but more important as well, asking through the focus group and as well also getting all the insights. So I think normally the technology allows you to get all the feedback. So that is not a problem. I think what is the problem normally are two. The first one is to make sure that you have the methodology on getting the feedback in the project from the right beginning. So it should not be an after fact. And the second one, which is more important, is that once you have the feedback, I think you need to act on it.
Right.
Because if you get the feedback and then you say, okay, thank you, but you just are waiting for feedback that is reconfirming what you want to do and you are not open to change, I think that's a problem. Right now, we have so many technologies, so many agents, so many possibility to really understand what the customer is telling us, the user is telling us, that is no longer a problem. It's our willingness and our capability to act on it.
It's less about the avenues of feedback and more on, hey, what do we do with that? Are we actually going to follow the data or are we going to go with our gut or our opinion?
And to have the right metric system in place, the right KPI, that is telling you about the feedback, the right KPI that tell you about the adoption, the right KPI about the usage rate, and so on. So I think that that's really important, because unless you don't measure and you don't understand what's the gap, I think it's very difficult to develop an action plan to address and close these gaps.
Earlier, you mentioned user experience as one of the biggest areas of opportunity and biggest challenges for many businesses and tech leaders out there. I want to circle back to that. And I think it's going to tie into that feedback piece you mentioned very nicely. Why is it so important to select technology that is intuitive, user friendly, and more like the technology that employees are already using in their everyday lives?
When I started my career before even 2000, uh, early 1990. You were joining this company, and the technology you will find in this company was incredible. So there was no personal computer penetration at home. Very rarely, mobile phone were the big portable phone, huge, that were used for several for executive level. This has totally shifted. In the past, technology was just in the enterprise. Nowadays, the coolest technology is what you have at consumer level. You are buying a new smartphone and you have everything available. We want to have a video call. I download Zoom quickly or whatever other system on my own. I can connect with friends in across all the different countries. I can chat with them, and the simplicity of technology and user friendliness, frankly, has spoiled us. And when I go in a company, I'm expecting the same level and the same access of simple technology. And then I don't want to be in front of older designed and complex user interface when I'm working on a promotion planning system or whatever on an order entry system. We have this challenge how we create the same experience that is outside in the company with the complexity of several platforms that many times are a different level of age.
Right, right. Because to your point, maybe you adopted something or you went on something that was 10 years old, and now you have to figure out how to make that work with something that you just acquired or implemented last year, right? And
Yes,
and the technology 10 years ago is radically different even than what we're using today, right?
and the user experience was totally different, and not necessarily you can change everything at one time because of the investment needed, but also the change done in the company. So you have to select how you create the best experience possible within the company.
From your experience, did the user interface and the ease of use, did that in any way ever influence your adoption rates for the tech?
Yes, yes, he has done. Many times there has been a discussion about how you select a technology, and then you see, but the front end of the user screen are too complex to navigate, and famous discussion about how do we develop on top a layer that is making simple for the end user, which is how we again we try to optimize. And unfortunately, you normally, especially if you are going for a package on the shelf of a platform, you want to make sure that you don't keep customizing to the craziness. So if you go for a ERP system like could be an SAP or a planning system like a JDA or whatever other solution. So at the end of the day, there is a fundamental on how the easiness of the usage to avoid the risk, frankly, that many times you spend a million in this implementation, you have this capability, and then the user are gonna just keep using Excel on their personal computer to run the company. Because many times we always know that user keep developing on their personal computer macro super system in Excel or in Access database, and the reason is that because the technology that you're bringing is too complex to use. You are just thinking that there is an high usage just because you are implemented the technology, but you are not truly measuring how they're used. And there are so many other systems that keep being developed on their own. So that's the reason why adoption and measuring the usage is so important.
Well, thanks for elaborating a little bit more on that key component. What key questions do you think our listeners should be asking about their adoption rates if their key financial targets are not being hit?
I believe that there are two different set of metrics. as you said, there are some financial metrics that you want to measure. Do I have an impact on ROI? I'm really improving my promotion effectiveness. Do I have the right forecasting accuracy and so on? And these are the normal kind of metrics that you have in business terms. But then there is another set that is more related to the adoption and the usage. And that's related to about how many users are regular using the system, for how long, do we have the right performance in terms of response time of the system, which is very important because otherwise people are getting sick of it. Do they follow all the different steps into the process, or just they are using at the end to put the output? So I think it's really important that the number of recurring user. So it's good that you just are once into the system, because that's where the first time that I make the training. But are you recurring, leveraging those capability day after day? So there are this kind of set of metrics, which, first of all, do we have the right system of measurement for these metrics? And we have identified the right metrics of change management, process adoption, and usage adoption that allow us to check if the system is truly leveraging and is really making the change that was intended to do.
The ability to monitor and understand the adoption rates as you laid out, it really is just one piece of what's going to make that quality solution or tech stack for the business. Shifting gears here, I mean, when analyzing the technology's flexibility, which is something that you noted was very important at the top of our conversation, perhaps the main question is, can the tech stack or the technology solution keep up with the changes in your business or business model across both the short term and the long term? This is something we hit on a little bit earlier. But I want to focus on the flexibility and the scalability. From your perspective, Francesco, I mean, what are some of the considerations to look at in the short term and long term in terms of use case for the tech?
Well, clearly, the scalability is extremely important. So, are you in a part? Hopefully, we are talking about you are part of a business that is growing, that the number of transactions is growing, that probably is also growing through acquisition, but also envisioning that the amount of data is growing. So in all company, the amount of data between internal, external, the data sources that you can ingest, the number is increasing. And we have so many new data sources that are available that you need to make sure that whatever technology you pick has the capability of ingesting new data to grow together with your business, number one, but also from an affordability point of view, that the costs are not going to explode. So that's, I think, is in terms of scalability, is extremely important. The second one is the flexibility, because as we said before, the business model is going to change. Many times you change your operating model, you want to create a back-end standardized office and probably leverage some shared business services that you can put in other countries. You might want to start thinking about your creating a manufacturing company, a commercial company. Just to give an example on how you are totally changing your business model. The number of legal entity can change. And many times also your focus in terms of on the business, how you're becoming from one single channel to more omni-channel, how you want to look at your customer in a different ways. And if your technology is too rigid, too monolithic, and doesn't give you this kind of flexibility, I think it's the wrong choice. So, looking from an architecture point of view to this dimension that allows really to almost to have different building blocks in your technology stack. And last but not least, not necessarily the technology, but also the partner that is developing and envisioning the technology is a partner that is shared the same vision in terms of how we progress the capability, is a partner that is willing to work with you as well, also in defining new capability of enhancing the product together. And I think these are things that we always need to think.
Absolutely. Again, finding someone who is not just a piece of tech, but a partnership is going to be essential. Earlier, you listed a few of your greatest accomplishments. What role would you say flexibility and extensibility of the technology played in those specific successes?
So I give you example of COVID. the example of COVID, were building in the cloud with the possibility of scale up and scale down the demand. Our traffic on the digital scheduler was such that when we open the new appointment every day, in the first 20 minutes, we have a spike of the traffic it was in the range of 500 times. In the first 20 minutes, all the appointments were gone. I'm talking about the first few months of when the vaccine was really not available. Now, can you imagine that? Can you build something that can cope with this demand in your environment without the cloud that has the possibility of auto scaling? No, that's a very stupid example, but it's real. It's something that we had to work, and a partner that was able to work with us with this kind of scalability. The possibility of having solution that can adapt to your business model, to your needs, is super important. Scalability, one aspect, agility, the possibility of creating many times you are working through merger or acquisition. You need to build capability, especially in the finance space on the fly. How do you have a solution that is working in this space? One of the areas that was as well also extremely impacted even during COVID was the element of forecasting and replenishment, because you were with unprecedented aspect. And so all the traditional systems, they were not truly working. Having a partner that is also capable of flexible work with you and say what are we learning and what we can build quickly to develop some capabilities is extremely important.
Well, Francesco, I think we are about out of time today. I really appreciate you sharing all these rich career experiences with us and also sharing a little bit of advice to professionals out there who are working in this space and seeking out what is the best tech stack for our org or best partnership for our org. To close out today's conversation, though, I just want to bring it back to you for some final thoughts. Looking back on more than 3 decades working in IT, what final words of wisdom or career experiences would you like to leave our listeners with as we wrap up the conversation?
Well, probably the 2 things that really excited me during my career have been, the first of all is really looking at the business outcome first, and then how the technology is an enabler, because that's at the end of the day is we are in a business and we need really to look at that aspect. And the second one is that we are so lucky to be in an area that is changing, that we can learn always new. So be always open to the innovation, to what's new, to learn new things, and never expect that we know everything, because there are so much that is changing. It's great. I keep getting new tools in my toolbox. You keep always learning, and that's fantastic. Be open to always learning.
I think that's a great way to put it. And to wrap us up, listeners, you're never done learning new tools, new tricks, new skills. Francesco Tinto, the former CIO of Walgreens, Boots Alliance, and many other incredible brands. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Caleb. Thanks, everybody.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning into today's episode featuring Francesco Tinto, where he shared his incredible journey as a digital transformation leader before weighing in with his perspective and experience on how he assessed the right technology to grow his organizations throughout his career. If you enjoyed today's conversation and want to learn more from the world's leading change agents, you can join our community of global innovators by heading to aim10x.09solutions.com and signing up today. To keep up with more episodes of Masters of Digital Transformation, you can also follow us and leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your preferred podcast app. You can learn more about the activities and opportunities available through the AIM10X Innovators Network by following AIM10X on LinkedIn. Well, listeners, as we wrap up today's conversation, I'm reminded of a quote from Abraham Maslow. In any given moment, we have 2 options: to step forward into growth or to step back into safety. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We'll catch you again in our next episode, where we sit down with Gustavo Lopez-Gorri, the former Kimberly-Clark CSCO and Global VP of Manufacturing at P&G, to learn about his perspective on the role of leadership in driving a successful digital transformation. Don't miss it.